Welcome in, everybody. It's Friday. It's grind time. It is time to get a draft going on tonight. I am joined by Theo Gremminger, a friend of mine from the industry. He's a high-stakes grinder, the lead high-stakes analyst now for Player Profiler, and we just so happen to be drafting in the Player Profiler Championship at the FFWC. I'm drafting from the 2-hole tonight, Theo. You are drafting from the 8-hole. Are you excited for the draft tonight or what?
I'm thrilled to be drafting with you. We've always have competitive drafts against one another, and I'm happy that we're kind of on opposite ends of the board. So we're not right next to each other. So it should be a little bit better viewing for everyone.
No snipes tonight from Theo or myself, but we can definitely look to put punishment on one another in each round. We're going to get the intro started when we come back. We should be on the clock here shortly. Stick around, everyone. It's going to be draft time soon. Welcome to Grind Time.
Nothing but time, use it to grind. They huff and they puff it, this bacon is mine. Stakes are all high, your stakes are so dry. I'm as rare as they come, put it all on the line. Losing very doubtful, cause I'm winning every outcome. I'm impressed by his guess, there's no reason to guess. Drafting like I won the lotto, but it's grind every day. Managing teams is just part of the game. Free agents, lineups, they all in one place. This is the content that can't be replaced. Speaking of place, first is the option. Win is the goal and I do it real often. Tournament entries, I already bought them. I bury the field, that's the nail in the coffin. Checking my watch, checking my clock. Grind is the time, I ain't never gonna stop. Digital, analog, never gonna stop. You ain't never gonna stop, I ain't never gonna stop. Checking my watch, checking my clock. Grind is the time, I ain't never gonna stop. Digital, analog, never gonna stop. You ain't never gonna stop, I ain't never gonna stop. Cause it's grind time, let's go.
All right, it's grind time. We got the clock is ticking down. We got about 1 minute until this draft is kicked off. We're also in another draft right now. Let's just do some small talk before the draft starts. We're doing the FFWC video showdown. You are representing the GOAT District, or as part of the GOAT District team, I should say. You were with us last year. We have now started this year. We got quite the room of heavy hitters. We have Bob Harrison there from Football Diehards. We have Larky in there from the 33rd team. Matt Kelly from Player Profiler. We have Fantasy Alarm. We have the Face Off. We have Best Bell Fantasy. We have a ton Fantasy Pros. I mean, I could just go on and list 12 different sites here, but I'm not going to. So there's a ton of sites, ton of competition, but it kind of sets the tone for tonight, right? We've seen what some players are doing. We're able to see what each other, what players that I like, what players you like. But I'm excited to draft our Player Profiler Championship draft tonight.
Yeah, no, me too. I love the best ball format we're doing, but nothing better than like a Friday night redraft league like this. It's always super competitive, and I think we're about to go off the clock right here.
Yeah, let me pull up the draft board. Let me get rid of this background here, and we'll pop this up here for everyone to see. That's as good as I can get it, folks. I will also throw, surprise, surprise, Jonathan Taylor goes to the 101. I'm going to take Christian McCaffrey here. I was on the clock. I'm going to mute that so it doesn't do that the entire time. If you want to mute it, Theo, you just right-click the tab at the top and hit mute site, and that'll mute it.
Yeah, no, mine's muted.
Great.
You got to like the Baker for your McCaffrey pick. It just makes the offense just a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, I think overall it makes it a little bit better. I mean, McCaffrey arguably has higher upside than Jonathan Taylor. I mean, we all know injuries is the concern with Jonathan Taylor. I mean, with Christian McCaffrey versus Jonathan Taylor. But when healthy and on the field, Christian McCaffrey is putting up 30 fantasy points a game. Not many backs in the league, if any, are averaging that amount in PPR. So to get my anchor running back, I've had drafts where I've seen McCaffrey go the 101. I believe in ownership distribution, and if you are at the 101, you have to select Taylor just because he hardly ever falls outside the 101. So just from a statistical standpoint, you have to select him at 101 if you want ownership of him. But I'm fine, comfortable with people taking McCaffrey at 101, Taylor at 101. I think they're equally as good of backs. So,
no, for sure. And now I'm on the clock. I could go in a couple different directions here, but I think there might be a wide receiver run before the next pick that I'm making. So I want to get a wide receiver I'm really into right now in Stephon Diggs. I like him in this range of the draft as like a high upside pick.
Yeah, I like Diggs a lot. I've really liked the teams where I've started with Diggs as my first pick. Just gives you a lot of flexibility, especially in this format when you're starting 3 wide receivers. We have 2 flex spots, so ideally you could start 5 wide receivers on a week-to-week basis. You need the depth of the position, and we see running backs kind of fall a little bit in this format simply because of the wide receiver 3 start. So I definitely like the Diggs call there.
Yeah, and you see people like start panic drafting when they kind of get boxed out at wide receiver, and you'll see like people making picks in like the 4th round that maybe they didn't want to make just because they're trying to play catch up. And I definitely don't want to be that person tonight.
Yeah, for all those who are tuning in, I just put in the link share for the board. It does not show the players' names, but if you are having a hard time with the prints with us sharing the screen, there's the link for you to follow along. Just know that I'm drafting in the 2 hole. Theo is drafting in the 8 hole, so the McCaffrey start, the Diggs start, and that'll give you something to look at a little bit easier than trying to follow along on the screen. So if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. While you're on here, please hit like. Please leave a comment. It helps with the algorithm here on YouTube, helps us get found, and allows us to keep creating all this great content. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. So round 1, Jonathan Taylor goes to the 101, McCaffrey to the 102, Jefferson goes 103. That's chalk as it can pretty much get in the first 3 picks. Kupp and Chase followed at 104, 105. Eckler at the 106, Cook at the 107, Diggs to Theo at 108, Harris at 109, Adams to the 10 hole, Henry to the 11 hole. Swift is continuing to climb into the first round here at FFWC. That is the 3rd time now that I've seen him in the first round. I've seen him as high as the 107, and then Lamb here on the turn as well to the 2-1.
Yeah, we talked in the pre-show. Swift was one of my choices at the 108. I really like him this year, and I think he gives you a lot of upside. I prefer him to Henry and Harris at this point in the draft.
You look at this from a PPR standpoint, Swift is arguably the best PPR back in the league. I mean, Alvin Kamara as well, but there's that looming suspension possibility of it happening, and I think that's what you're seeing Swift. You push up the board and taking over that lead PPR back. You know, I put his pass catching abilities up there with Christian McCaffrey.
No, for sure. And, I think the Lions are going to be very improved this year. I think this really could be Swift's year. And I'm working on an article now where I'm trying to look at the 2023 101. And Swift is like one of the names that I think could dramatically rise up and go a lot higher next year than he is this year.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see him as a top 6-7 pick, like the Eckler of next year, Dalvin Cook range, right? I've seen him go there already. It's just a matter of who's in your draft room. Gone are the days of the late 2nd round Swift picks. So if you had that early opportunity, hope you cashed in on it, because Swift is now on the 1-2 turn on a regular basis. All right, you're on the clock here.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a Saquon Barkley pick for me.
I love it.
I like the idea of Saquon, and it kind of opens up possibilities. I'm going for it.
So we have a question here. What is the magic of life? You want to answer that one, Theo?
I would say balance and family, and you have to take care of your health.
Okay. All right.
What do you think, Billy?
What is the magic of life? Oh man, this
is a really really hard question on the board to start out with. I thought you could ask like Mike Evans versus Keenan Allen, which one do you prefer?
There's some deep shit here. We're drafting Diggs and Barkley and talking about the purpose of life. I think the magic. He said magic. Is it purpose or magic? I'm just gonna say purpose. I think the purpose of life is for you to find meaning in yourself, right? I think that's what the meaning of life is, because I think the more that you find yourself, you're going to help others. You're going to develop them along the way, and by finding yourself, I think that is the meaning of life.
I like that one. Off the cuff.
Here we go. Jared Hines says, Theo, that answered our question from earlier.
Yeah, no, Jared's my boy. Very good drafter. He active guy on Twitter. Which team is Jared? Jared, maybe you could answer that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure right now. I don't have it pulled. I don't have the owner parts pulled up. Yeah, I think Anthony here is talking about Swift has to prove that he can stay healthy and manage the load. I definitely think that is the key element to Swift and his success as well. Trevor says, "I hope both sides of your pillow are warm for taking Barkley there."
There you go. There you go.
That's like the worst curse ever. I'm on the clock. 1 second. I thought I muted it.
Oh, is FFQ later in this draft too? Shout out! Oh, there he is, right there next to me. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I didn't
you
mean to
sniped
snipe
him.
you. Oh, we got a nice draft tonight. I didn't see you in there. Kelsey goes. Is that about where you like him in this this format?
Yeah, I think I closed the window on accident. Let's see who's on top of the board right now. Who am I going to get? PPC 3. How much time do I have?
You have 25 seconds. Andrews,
okay.
Tyreek, Kamara, Chubb, AJ Brown,
I'm
T.
back
Higgins.
in. Okay, I'm back in. Good. Okay, 17 seconds. I closed that tab. Rookie mistake. All right, let's do Tyreek there.
There you go. Have you been drafting a lot of Tyreek?
It's not working. I have not been drafting a lot. I've been taking him more at this, 2-3 turn, but when we're starting 3 receivers, I'll take him all day at this spot. Like if it's a 2 receiver league, or if I'm in the middle, like say where you took Barkley or Keenan Allen, I'm less inclined to take Tyreek just because of his strength of schedule and new team and Tua, and there's just a lot of unknown factors. But 2-3 turns, start 3 wide receivers, sure, why not?
Yeah, no, I've actually ended up with a good amount of Waddle this drafting season, and I have some Tyreek, but it's kind of like, even if you're not into him, you don't want to. If you're drafting high volume, you want to have some exposure to him because he's Tyreek, and that offense will be super interesting to see which way the distribution goes. But one of the range of outcomes is Tyreek just showing up and smashing.
Yeah. For those of you who have the tools pulled up, we've been having some issues with the board. So the ADP board right now is just a visual representation. We're trying to fix for it to show live. I'm on the clock again, aren't I? Yeah.
Only 25 seconds.
So we're trying to fix for it to show live. It's just not updating right now currently. So in the meantime, though, the ADP for the Player Profiler Championship, the list, though, is updating live, and that's a new feature. I didn't even know that was happening yet. So thank you, Mike, if you're watching. Mike is our IT guy, tech side, who does all these cool tools and creates all the new features that we have here at FFWC. But this is actually updating live, so this is phenomenal. So this is a great tool to utilize right now in drafts. You can take a look. It's showing the last 10 drafts. So this is ADP based upon the last 10 drafts. Right before you join the room, it's going to be right in there where the right below the enter button is, says ADP list. This is that list here for you.
No, it's awesome.
Let me go back to the board for people. Okay. We have a lot of comments. Let me get caught up on comments here. Stat Guru says wine and food for me is the meaning of life. That's not far from the truth. I can tell you that, because I've definitely found happiness in food and wine. Kev Wheeler says tequila and sativa.
There you go, Wheeler. Shout out to Wheeler. Good to see you here, Wheeler.
Thanks for the support all the time, Wheeler. Appreciate you being here. Jared says he's team 4. And so he is the Cup Kelsey team.
Okay, so Jared's OTC right now with Cup Kelsey, and he goes David Montgomery.
Yeah, don't like the Montgomery pick, but the Cup Kelsey starts pretty good. We've noticed, though, tight ends have really fallen in this format. So I was talking with Andrew Krautwurst. He was in one of the drafts with me the other night, and he said, "Man, I felt so good about Kelsey at the 211 until I saw Kittle go at the 8-1, and then
yeah."
So
no, I mean that's the problem with this is if you take the Kelsey or Mandrews, and then you look and see who goes in like much later, you can kind of like Dave Hubbard would refer to. It's kind of like the story of the draft, where if you would have done this, it would have opened you up to this. There goes Waddle, a guy who I would have strongly considered. 2 away.
So Kevin says he's questioning the Keenan Allen pick at 2-4. I thought it was a little early as well, but go out and get your guy. Why not?
Yeah, Chillzone is a really experienced drafter. I'd be interested to hear his rationale on it, but I do think that, like, oh, there goes ETN. So Q-Later got a 3 running back start. I'm on the clock now. There's a few players I like here. ETN was in my queue, but I'm going to go with another wide receiver, a guy who obviously got some improvement, much like your McCaffrey pick earlier. I like DJ Moore a little bit more now with Baker Mayfield. So I'm going to take DJ Moore here at the 308. He definitely wouldn't have made it back to me in the 4th round. And I think that's pretty good value for him at wide receiver 16.
Yeah, let's see where the ADP. So you just took him. So did he pop off yet? DJ Moore. Am I missing him?
You just passed him 32.
32. So yeah, there you go. Wide receiver 16 is ADP. So you got him at ADP, wide receiver 16. So you got him exactly at ADP, 32 and wide receiver 16.
Yeah, I think he's going to move up a little bit because I think that this is like a don't call me an idiot type comment, but I think there's a possibility that McCaffrey's going to come back, but it's still, a little more DJ Moore centric, at least a more balanced team. I think that DJ Moore is the real deal. He's 25. All of his metrics last year were really, really impressive. And if he would have just scored a couple more touchdowns, he would have been getting drafted earlier. I mean, that's kind of the story of his career. But I think he was like 28% target share last year. He was way, way up there, like top 5 in the league in air yards and target share. So, hopefully that continues.
Yeah, and this is the best quarterback he's going to be seeing in his career, arguably, right? He finished last year as wide receiver 18, and that was with, the hot mess he had inside the quarterback situations. You look at his metrics from last year, number 5 in target share, so you hit the hammer on the nail, 28.4% in target share. He had 162 targets last year. That is a lot of targets.
Yeah,
right?
It's a ton.
Snap share, he saw an 87.2% snap share, number 12 in the league. He ran 572 routes last year, number 6 in overall in the league in terms of routes ran. You look at his air yards, and people don't think of DJ Moore as an air yard guy, right? People think of him as someone who's catching the balls underneath across the field, getting yards at the catch. But he had 1,632 air yards last year. That's number 5 in the league, right? So he's been sneaky good. I know he hasn't been the receiver that people were hoping for out of college, but he continues to get better and better and better every year. And now he finally has, I wouldn't say, a competent quarterback, but it's going to be the most competent that he's seen at the position or in his career at this point. So I expect DJ Moore to have a significant bump in efficiency here in 2022 with Baker.
Yeah, and even if it's like, you go from like one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league to a guy that maybe might be right inside of the QB2 line, but that could still be a significant difference.
So I've been naming Baker as the starter already. Are you sold that Baker is just going to come in and win the job, or do you think Darnold is
no doubt? I think no doubt that Baker wins the job. I think it's like you don't go and pick up Baker for him to back up Sam Darnold. I think it's going to be Baker. I think it's Baker game 1 in the big revenge game against the Browns. And I think it's going to be Baker unless he like completely, plays terribly. Then I think he's got the job. And I think that he might, I think it's like a, let's save Matt Rule's job type move.
Yeah.
So I think Matt Rule, self-perseverance is a big thing for head coaches. And, Matt Rule wants to win some games. And I think Baker gives him the best chance than Darnold.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, Darnold was keeping his fantasy points alive last year from rushing in the beginning of the year. Was not getting it done as a passer. And this offense definitely wants to throw the ball. Yes, they've been able to kind of rely on Christian McCaffrey in the years past when he was healthy, but I don't think they want to give him all that workload again. They want to keep him healthier this year. Yes, he's still going to get a shit ton of work, don't get me wrong, but they're going to want to spread the ball around. They're going to want to get the ball to DJ Moore. They're going to want to get the ball to Robbie Anderson. They're going to want to involve, Marshall at some point. They're going to have to use a tight end, right? So I think that we're going to see a more efficient offense here for Carolina.
All right, let's see.
you were on the clock here. You started Diggs, Barkley with the second pick, DJ Moore with the third pick. Which
Yeah,
way
I
you
really
leaning
wanted.
here?
I had Cortland Sutton queued up, and I thought he would get to me. So I would prefer to take a wide receiver in this range, but Mark Andrews is arguably the tight end one, and he's sitting there for me well past Travis Kelce. So I'm going to go Andrews, and I'm going to square down the tight end position.
And I think that is the furthest he has now gone. So pick 41 right now off the board. Prior to that, Andrews has gone at pick 20. Low side of pick 30 was, no, yep, 30 was his previous low. So you just got 11 picks of value on his previous low.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I would have gone Sutton over Andrews because of the format, but I think that like in this tournament type play, when you reach a point where there's a glaring value, even if it's a one-off position, I don't mind pulling the trigger on it. And I'm super happy to have Andrews there.
Yeah, I'm not a tight end early guy in this format, but at 4-5, I think the value is too good to pass.
Yeah, and after like I feel like Andrews and Kelce are pretty safe tight end plays, and I think afterwards it's like the other elite tight ends like Pitts. I'm a big fan of, but there's big question marks about the offense. Waller, it's where is he in the pecking order? Kittle, his health. There's a couple other tight ends that we like that go a little later, but Andrews is like right up there with Kelce for me in the argument for tight end one overall.
Yeah, Andrews is my tight end one in my rankings. I have him just slightly ahead of Kelce. It's very close. I have them in their own tier, and then I have Pitts kind of in his own tier, and then from there I have Kittle and Waller in their own tier. So fantastic value on Andrews there. He's traditionally going, wow, people just want to keep handing me Alvin Kamara late. I'll take it. I don't really want him here, but I'll take him here. I got him at the 5'11" in one of these last week when I drafted with the Podfather, Matt Kelly, and today at 4'11". So I don't think he's going to make it back here on this turn from Kolschlein. So I'll go ahead and take Kamara.
Yeah, that 5'11" was unbelievable value. And it's just the only problem with taking like Kamara is we have like the kind of question marks is in how many games he's suspended. We're all thinking he's going to get suspended. So it kind of affects your build. You've got to, maybe RB2 is something you're going to have to pay a little more attention to than, if you would have taken not to name any running backs that are still on the board, but that's the only problem with taking a guy like him or, a DeAndre Hopkins or one of these guys with question marks.
Yeah, and so let's just assume it's 6 weeks, right? That's the rhetoric right now. Alvin Kamara going to be suspended 6 weeks, but there's a real possibility that's 0, right? This case could be pushed back, and next thing you know, he avoids suspension in 2022, which is a huge win at this spot in the draft. But let's just say we follow the rhetoric. He's suspended 6 games. Where would you be comfortable drafting Alvin Kamara knowing that he's suspended 6 games?
I would say right about where you got him. I mean, I think that I've heard you make an argument that he's worth a 3rd round pick. I saw you and Matt Kelly, the Podfather, podcasting, and you were talking about your pick, and you'd be comfortable taking him in the 3rd, which I think you could make an argument for. But I think it's kind of like an opportunity cost type deal where I'd be much more comfortable taking him in the 4th. There's less like kind of Teflon guys at wide receiver, and I think you're kind of able to overcome taking him where you take him in that 4th round, 5th round range. But I think the 4th for me would be where I'd be comfortable for a 6-game suspension. And you're not taking a 0 in that RB2 spot in the weeks without Kamara. So, if he comes back and if he's the focal point of the offense, you could have a CMC Kamara team that's really, really dangerous in the postseason.
Okay, I got 20 seconds here. Deciding between 2 players. I already have enough Amari Cooper, so he's off the table for me. I think I'm going to stick with my boy who I pegged as a breakout candidate last year. It happened in the playoffs, but nonetheless, the wide receiver 2 for Buffalo. As my wide receiver 3, I like it. I'm more inclined to take him as my 3rd option than my 2nd option, but Gabe Davis, I think, should have a pretty good year.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly like a polarizing guy right now. But where you took him at like wide receiver 27, I think that's fine. And you're seeing some people pushing him up to like wide receiver, 22-ish,
Yep.
which I think where you took him is very good.
So I took him slightly ahead of ADP. He's been going at pick 57. Where did I take him? I got him at pick 50, so we know he wasn't coming back. Wide receiver 29 is his average off the board. You said I got him for 27. So, again, just took him a little earlier, but I already have Judy shares. I already have Amari Cooper shares. I'm not sold on St. Brown with all the additions in this offense with DJ Chark, a healthy Hawkinson, a healthy Swift. There's a lot of mouths to feed. I think as good of a season as he had last year and how dynamic he was down the stretch, it's going to be hard to repeat that efficiency when you have all these mouths to feed on the field. Elijah Moore, same thing, right? They added Wilson. They still have Corey Davis. They have Breece Hall. They added 2 tight ends. So I like Elijah Moore a lot, but I own a lot of them. But I want to start mixing in some diversity across my total portfolio. This is only my 3rd Player Profiler Championship draft, so ownership right now is still being established in this format. But as a ownership in general, I don't own a lot of Gabe Davis this year.
So there's been a positional run here. A lot of wide receivers that were in my queue went. I'm going to take Adam Thielen a little bit higher than I'd like to take him, but him as my wide receiver 3. I don't mind. Again, I'd like to get him a little later, but I don't think he'd be making it back to me based on the way wide receivers are going. And I don't want any part of that Cleveland offense right now. So I hope it's very pass happy in Minnesota because I took an old wide receiver right now. And that's the problem with taking Andrews is it forces me to reach a little bit for a wide receiver right there.
Yeah. So we have a couple questions here. Let me mute my phone. A couple questions here. Where would it go? I lost the question. The chat just blew up. Give me a second. Here it is. Do tight ends drop in this format due to the dual flex? So there's 2 reasons why tight ends are dropping this format. One, yes, it is due to dual flex, but primarily it is not tight end premium. So you're not getting that extra half a point per reception. And you're also starting 3 wide receivers, which in general is going to push wide receiver up the board, which naturally pushes other positions down, like tight end, like quarterback. So that's why we see the fall in the tight end position here at FFWC.
Yeah, it's really hard to make up for it at wide receiver in this format for sure. I like what Team 12 has done with their start. I think that's a really nice start with Swift, Lamb, Deontay, and Hollywood Brown.
Yep, I'm curious to see what he does here in the turn. I was looking at his start earlier. I love the Swift Lamb start. Not crazy about Gibson, but get your RB2. I really like the 3 wide receivers he selected.
Yeah, Gibson's starting to fall to like maybe I'm a little bit higher on him than you are, but he's starting to fall to a range where you can kind of talk yourself into him, even though there's all the question marks and committee worries and all that kind of stuff. Because if he hits at that like 5'11" spot, then Team 12 really has a nice team.
Yeah, I think it's all going to – how much usage is he going to see, right? They bring back in McKissick. They draft a goal line back. There's a lot of concerns with Gibson, but when he has been given the opportunity, he has excelled. So that's one of those risk-reward backs this year. And if it hits, I mean, if he did what he did on the stretch all season long, I mean, it's a first-round draft pick, right? Inside the 5th round. So I've had mixed feelings about Gibson. I drafted him a lot more earlier before they brought back McKissick, before they drafted Robinson. And then after all that happened, I was kind of dreading some of my shares, but it'll be interesting to see how camp breaks down and how the situation unfolds. We had a comment in here and I just verified it, but somebody said that was the earliest that Gage has been selected in the tournament. I can't find the comment. Oh, there we go. Kev Wheeler said it. And so prior to that, his previous low was 52, so he went 4 picks above his previous low. His averaging is wide receiver 37 right now, and he just went at wide receiver 26. So it is the earliest that we have seen Gage go at the FFWC so far, at least in this format.
Yeah, so I'm on the clock here. I'm kind of between two players. This is a tough one.
Well, while you're debating, I'll go ahead and Stats Guru says, plus the Redskins suck.
Well, absolutely.
The Washington football team now, or was it now the Commanders?
The Commanders.
God.
I am going to go with A.J. Dillon, a player who I'm getting a little bit more excited about. I know we butt heads on him as well, but I like him as my RB2 in this format. I think that he could be underrated, and I think he could have a very big year. I think it's going to be very running back centric in Green Bay.
I like Dillon less than you, but more than my draft partner Dave. And so I think Dillon is going to have a pretty good year. I mean, we saw him start taking on more pass catching opportunity. He's a big bruising back for short yardage and goal line work. Although Aaron Jones also excels in that area. I think regardless whether Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon are both on the field, both of them are going to have great years. So you look at the usage when we had Devontae Adams out last year, and Aaron Jones was seeing double-digit targets. Dillon was seeing a lot more early down work. So it might be kind of a preemptive of what's going to happen here in 2022. Either way, if without Adams on this team, both of them should be heavily used.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of have to be. I mean, I've seen and again, it's a player, they're all on the board right now, but I've seen arguments for these Green Bay wide receivers, and it's just, I can't get excited about any of them. I mean, somebody's going to be catching the football, but it's like hard to kind of paint a picture of one of those guys really smashing. And there's some Tunyon people right now, but who knows how he is. I mean, he was so touchdown dependent. To think of him having an expanded role, coming off of an injury, just basically because of the next man up theory is not something I can really get behind.
Okay, I'm on the clock now. I'm debating which way I want to go.
And I'm glad I went Dillon because of the running back run right there. Looks like there's going to be a few more going.
I am between two players here. If I had not taken Kamara, I probably would have taken DeAndre Hopkins, but I just cannot have two players on my team suspended for 6 weeks plus, or out 6 weeks, I should say. You know what? I'm going to go with Drake London. I love his profile coming out of college. I could see him having kind of a similar trajectory of like Mike Evans, right? Just like 1,000 yards out the gate. He's got the big bodied frame. He can post people up in the end zone. And you're not hearing a lot of him coming out of camp. And no news in my mind is good news, right? He's 6'4", 213 pounds, huge frame. I think that in this offense, Pitt's, taking on a lot of that defenders, having to watch him as well. There's not a lot of wide receivers in this offense, which by just choice, or I should say not by choice, but just by necessity, he's going to be peppered with targets. Wow, that's early for Olave as well. But so he's going to be peppered with targets, and then to have him as a red zone target with Pitts, I think Drake London could have a good year as well.
Yeah, I love the London pick. I had him, I considered him where the Dillon pick was. I wouldn't have taken him where I took Thielen, but I think where I took Dillon, I absolutely considered London. He's super physical, and I think that, it's going to be such a narrow target tree in Atlanta potentially. We might have question marks about Mariota or Desmond Ridder, but, narrow target tree usually correlates to at least some predictable fantasy points every week. And London could just be a beast. So I agree with you. I like that pick, especially because he's your wide receiver 4. So you're less, relying on him early on.
And then I took Allen Lazard here as my 5th receiver.
There you go. You talked yourself into one. Lazard. I mean, it is what it is. Lazard's clearly the wide receiver that you'd want to roster right now in Green Bay. And I think that, like, you got him wide receiver 41. I can get behind him being like a wide receiver 3. I just have trouble thinking of him as a guy that could have like a later career big breakout, where he, is like wide receiver 20 or something. But it certainly is in the realm of possibilities based on nobody there.
Yeah, definitely within the realm of possibilities. You look at if you go to Full-Time Fantasy and utilize my vacated target sheet, Green Bay had 241 vacated targets. Of those 241, all 241 of them are at the wide receiver position. So Lazard could be in for a monster target share, and he's stepping into the wide receiver 1 role in this Aaron Rodgers offense, where he has always seemed to favor that one receiver, right? All throughout his career, he always kind of leaned on one guy, and I think that Allen Lazard is going to be that here in 2022 for him. So I'd like Allen Lazard more than most people do. The only other player I considered there was taking Ayuk, who just went there as wide receiver 43. But again, when I look at my overall portfolio, I have more Ayuk than I do have Lazard, and I wanted to add him in the mix here.
Yeah, my Q just got beat up with the Tony and Ayuk picks back to back. So shout out to those managers. I think they're very good picks.
Let's get caught up in the chat here. Haven't checked in a minute.
I am OTC.
Here. You know me, down with OTC. Yeah,
I'm down with OTC. I'm gonna have to take another. I think I'm gonna go with another dusty wide receiver here. In a player that I kind of always draft, and I'm going to draft him a little higher than I'd anticipate. I'm interested to see how high this is for FFWC, but I'm going to go with Tyler Lockett and hope that he's just a little bit too beat up here in terms of where he's going as wide receiver 45.
Who was it?
Tyler Lockett.
Oh, okay. Talk to me about Tyler Lockett. You like him more in best ball? Are you confident in him in redraft?
So, no, I'm not like – so he's been wide receiver 8 and wide receiver 16 the last 2 seasons. If we're projecting Geno Smith to be the quarterback in Seattle, is that the way you're leaning? You think it's going to be Geno?
I'm leaning Geno right now, which is really good news for DK Metcalf.
Agreed. And I think it's also good news for Tyler Lockett. The splits that Geno Smith had – Lockett and DK were pretty comparable in terms of target share. So I don't love it. I would have preferred Ayuk. I would have preferred Kadarius Toney right there. But again, to get Tyler Lockett at wide receiver 45 after finishing wide receiver 8 and wide receiver 16, you talk about another team with another kind of narrow target tree. Even if the pace of play is low, I think that Lockett's a big part of their offense. And we've certainly seen him have smash weeks as a fantasy player. So I'm still betting on a little bit of gas in the tank on Lockett. I know some people might have, him on like a do not draft type deal based on his age and how bad you anticipate the offense will be. But I'm still kind of a sucker for Lockett, especially in the wide receiver 4 range.
I like Lockett, but I like him a lot more in best ball than I do in redraft. I just have a hard time. He's such boom. He's just so boom bust, right? And yeah. I've liked him for years, and I've liked him more than the crowd has for years. But this year, I do have some concerns. How many weeks can they sustain a wide receiver 1 in this offense, let alone 2 like they had in the past? That's why we're seeing Lockett fall. But as wide receiver 45, okay, I'm comfortable with him there, right? But I've seen him go as high as like wide receiver 38, 39, and there's just 5, 6, 7, 8 wide receivers who I just have less risk and equal amount of upside. But right there where you got him, that's I think where he belongs right now, is at like wide receiver 43 to 46 range. And so I'm comfortable taking him there, but I still have questions every week. Like I feel dirty hitting start on him, right? Like right now, and who knows, maybe we're completely wrong and Geno Smith's going to ball it up. And next thing you know, we have Metcalf and Lockett back on top where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of funny because you're getting Metcalf pretty cheap. You're getting Lockett exceedingly cheap, and Noah Fant has like fallen off the face of the earth after being a top 12 tight end and a guy we kind of like the profile for a number of years. So if you like Seattle players and you think that Seattle is going to beat expectations, they've never been cheaper. And I wonder if kind of as the summer moves along, if they just name Geno Smith starting quarterback, if those guys don't see just like a at least a little more confidence than a potential horror show with Drew Lock.
Yeah, I think that they'll name him sooner rather than later. I don't think they're going to go into week 1 or like preseason week 2 or 3 like some teams do. I think that they'll name a starter and just start building the offense around him. I just don't. They'll probably have a short leash, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that they're going to sit here and have this competition all the way up to week 1 and keep people on their toes. We have a question here for you. With the Andrews pick was great value, but do you feel like you're chasing wide receiver and running back now?
Absolutely. And if Andrews doesn't like smash, and I don't get top 3 tight end production out of him with the tier break, then it's lights out for this team. Not taking, again, I would have taken Cortland Sutton over Andrews, and I think in retrospect, if I could kind of redo it here, just seeing kind of where Waller went, then maybe I would have kind of done it over again. But at the same time, like Billy said, it's a tournament setting. I'm OTC here. I'm going to take. I'm actually going to go with Garrett Wilson here. Get a little upside.
I think the draft stopped. I think Roy, our commissioner, watches and tunes in. He probably noticed that we were discussing a player and stopped the clock real quick.
I appreciate that.
Roy, go ahead and fire it back up, please.
Thank you, Roy.
But he watches out for us.
Yeah, 1912. Yeah, for sure. The Andrews pick definitely kind of put me behind the 8 ball, and actually the Dillon pick. You could have also made an argument for me taking a wide receiver there and potentially swapping in Drake London. So yeah, I don't hate my build, but
sorry, Theo, there was someone accidentally selected the wrong player, so that's what happened. He stopped it and fixed it for him. So he said no, F you guys. You would have timed out, Theo, anyways. No, I'm just kidding.
There you go.
Yeah, Kittle again goes almost to round 8 here. So he went 8-1 the other day, 7-12 here. I think in retrospect, even though it is great value, I agree with you. I think I probably would have been trapped into taking him there. I'm not gonna lie, like that's huge value in Andrews. But somebody like Mooney or Bateman there probably, and then coming back around, like you said, taking Waller later or even Kittle, I think would have changed the team's dynamic quite a bit.
Yeah, and like it was also one of the situations where I thought I was going to get Sutton. And I should have had a better plan. Things happen when you're drafting.
You're on the clock now.
I'm taking Garrett Wilson. Now it says failed. Draft is halted again. I think he's trying to
probably get it back.
Yeah, he's trying to fix something. Okay, well.
Okay, now you're on the clock.
Anyway. All right, I'm taking Garrett Wilson for the 3rd time. It's draft is still halted. But yeah, 1912 for sure.
It's counting down on my side. Are you counting down on your side?
No, it says stopped for me. Should I refresh it?
Yeah, refresh the screen. I'll refresh mine too.
Now it's counting down again. I'm going to try it one more time.
Yeah, usually when they throw someone back in the player pool, you should refresh anyways.
Okay, cool. Let me refresh it. Okay.
He says, "Wait, Theo, please." He just typed it in the chat. Looks
okay,
like
sure, no problem. But yeah, I mean, if you could have done it over again, potentially having a Mooney or a Bateman there, and then going with a tight end later, or taking avoiding the Dillon pick and taking Drake London there, I think I might have liked the makeup of the team a little better. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of draft left.
Okay, they're fixing things, having to throw people back in the queue here. Looks like they had some issues with someone picking on the turn. A player got picked on accident. So if you're watching the stream, Roy, our commissioner, is adjusting those picks for those players. If you ever have any problems, let me throw this over on this side so people can see what I'm talking about. You can always select this emergency help button on the right, and then that'll notify Roy that you need help. And then you can let Roy know what happened. Usually someone is either drafting their phone, they fat fingered something, or they accidentally selected another player, whatever it may be. It gives you a chance to notify the commissioner, and the commissioner can stop the draft and make the change for you. Now, if it was there are rules in regard to that. So just let Roy know what happened, and he'll let you know that they can either adjust it or not adjust it. So it looks like they're still trying to fix it here. Let me look at the chat inside the league. So looks like the draft is started. Let me ask Roy, are we good to pick, Roy? Rolling. Go ahead and pick.
All right, it went through. It went through.
All right, we're fixed. We're good to go. We're rocking and rolling again. Okay. Thanks for adjusting those for those guys, Roy. Appreciate you. All the hard work you do as a commissioner. So Schultz, looks like Schultz makes it back in the pool. So if you have not done so, if you're in the draft, if you're streaming with us, I should say, watching the stream, make sure to refresh your draft room to get Schultz back into the player queue.
Where are you at with Garrett Wilson right now, Billy?
I love Garrett Wilson. He was my wide receiver 1 coming into the draft. Based on landing spot, I moved London ahead of him because London was my wide receiver 2. With the landing spot, I moved him up with the vacated targets that were available there. So I love Wilson. I think he's a freak athlete. The news in camp is that he's been impressing, climbing the ladder, making picks, just continues to make freak catches. I think as long as the Jets can figure out how to not be dysfunctional and how not to be the Jets, I think that Wilson could be a pretty good rookie of the year candidate.
Yeah, I like him a lot, and I'm a huge Elijah Moore fan, but I think it's kind of like an arbitrage play where if you like Moore, you could go with the the perceived wide receiver 2 in Wilson, and it's just we have so much we like about the Jets. We just need Zach Wilson to be kind of normal. He doesn't even have to be good. He just has to be a normal quarterback, and I think those players could return value where they're going.
Okay, let me take a look at
Ramondre. That's Ramondre's moving up, huh?
Seems to be here.
Yeah, he's been kind of a hot name lately. People think he's going to be the passing down back, and he's got he's got a lot of talent running the football. But him going 6 spots behind Damian Harris, they're kind of getting pretty close right now.
Yeah, I think. I'm not crazy about tight end here, but I just don't like the other selections, so I'm going to go ahead and go Schultz here. I'm usually not an early tight end guy in this format, but running back run just killed the running backs in my queue. And the wide receivers there, I'm fine with like any of the next 6, quite frankly.
Yeah, and that's Schultz goes a few spots earlier in FFWC, I believe.
Yeah, let's see exactly.
84, so it's not that much earlier, but he's going a little bit earlier.
You have Hawkeyes. You found him so fast. Yeah,
I'm
84, tight end 6. So, I mean, that's 11 picks of value. That's a full round of value there on Schultz.
Yeah,
compared to where he normally goes. Okay, Kolschling's here, back-to-back on the turn. You and I each have our tight ends, which is not normal for me. Is it? Or are you normally an early tight end guy?
I could go different ways here. I don't mind taking an early tight end when the situation is there, and I don't mind completely punting it and going with 2 guys that are a little bit lower. I think there's some intriguing tight ends that are going late this year. The Gerald Everetts, the Evan Engrams. You can kind of piecemeal it together. I talked about Noah Fant as a tight end too. I know we both like Cole Kmet. Irv Smith is intriguing, so I think you can do it both ways this year for sure. What I don't like is reaching on a guy like Schultz. Like where you got him is good, but I think some people kind of push him up. I think you kind of lose your edge when you reach on like the tight end 6 or the tight end 5, unless it turns into Mark Andrews from last year and you win everything.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you look at a lot of the tournament teams, and Andrews was on them right at the finish line. Just such a godly season, he really did. And now
Oh,
they
he was
lose
huge win rate
Marquise,
guy.
huge win rate. They lose they trade Marquise Brown. Bateman now steps into wide receiver one position. Just makes you think they're going to lean earlier and more often on Andrews. Running backs coming off injuries, so Andrews could be in for a significant target share. Okay, I took MVS there as my wide receiver 6 off the board. I contemplated taking Jarvis Landry, contemplated Jacoby Myers. Ultimately went with who I think could have the higher upside just based upon being the deep threat for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, MVS is interesting. I mean, he's got a lot of positive camp reports, and some of the beat writers think he's going to have a big role. And I know you're not huge on Sky Moore, so I mean, he could potentially be the guy that maybe people are expecting Sky Moore to be, where Moore's going a little bit higher. I'm not sure. Where did Sky Moore go tonight?
90, went 8-6.
So not at that much higher, but still pretty close.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in following the money. I mean, they paid this man $10 million a year, and Moore's coming in as a rookie, learning the system, learning the offense, right, learning the NFL speed. You also have Juju there. You have Tyreek's gone. You have Kelsey there. Right? You look at Moore and say he might be the wide receiver 3 on this team, right?
Yeah,
which is going to be the 4th option, right? Maybe does he play behind Hardman? Probably not, but it's a possibility.
No, I don't think Hardman. But I think that one of the ideas with drafting Sky Moore is, you'd expect his role to kind of grow throughout the season. So I'm not opposed to him, but I can see your reservations. So right now it's pretty flat for me. And I do like Kyler Murray a lot. So I'm going to take Kyler Murray over a couple of these position players. And I think getting Kyler Murray at the 9-8 is great value for me.
It is. Look at this quarterback run. I thought about taking Mahomes there instead of MVS. I almost took MVS at the 8-11 and then took Mahomes at 9-4, and I said no, I'm going to push the position. So that's good value on Murray, good value on Mahomes there too for Johnny Invisible. Like Mahomes was going at like pick 50 something before. Where was he? There he is, 74. So pick 74, previous low of 97. Where did he go here today? Pick 100. So 3 spots below, but that's the new low at pick 100 for Mahomes. Murray, where's Murray here? Pick 95 on average. You got him at 104, so 10 picks of value. Previous low, though, is 116. That's pretty low.
Yeah, that's really great value, whoever got him at 116. But I'm happy where I got him at 104. Especially in this format, his rushing ability is just off the charts. And I think that getting Hollywood Brown, with the locker room narrative, the shower narrative, whatever you want to call them, having the 2 Oklahoma guys there could be interesting. So the hope is, Zach Ertz still stays, where he was the end of last year. He gets Hollywood Brown, James Conner. There's a couple other, players that are still on the board right now that could maybe take a step forward. And Murray has a big season and kind of beats his ADP, which I think is entirely possible. And he's kind of like the last quarterback that was available that I think could finish as QB1 overall.
Okay. I definitely within the realm of possibilities. I'm going to get caught up on the chat here. It looks like I've been sniping Snake all night. It says it's been horrible picking next to me. And then he had another comment. He said that I sniped him again on MVS. So glad that I can be the sniper tonight. Let's look at a couple of the other comments in here. Trevor says MVS has shown us who he's not. Though, I think the Podfather hit on a good point when I recorded with him a couple days ago, and he said that maybe MVS was put in this shell or this timeout zone by Rodgers, and that in this Chiefs offense and Patrick Mahomes that they just might let him just do his own thing, kind of evolve and grow into what we had seen his spike weeks be on a more regular basis. What's your thought on maybe Aaron Rodgers getting angry at MVS, maybe kind of shrinking him, kind of the Tom Brady timeout? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's your thought process on that?
I mean, I think I would rather be a receiver for Mahomes than Rodgers. It seems like, Rodgers definitely has a way of like phasing people out, and I think like your MVS is kind of maybe what we hoped Hardman would be, kind of like a consistent guy who can get deep, and you play his boom weeks, and all of a sudden he's a wide receiver 3. So. I definitely don't hate it. I had Landry in the queue. I think Landry's interesting.
Yeah, Landry. I actually thought about Landry over MVS there, just as a Kamara hedge. If Kamara gets suspended, we'll see an increase in passing attempts for Landry. I thought about doing it, but I just ultimately decided to pass. Wheeler says Landry is as reliable as the Tide, although he dropped the touchdown pass week 17, which cost him a championship. That dropped pass saved me about another couple grand in the league, so I was happy he dropped that pass.
I'm gonna double down on my Kyler Murray selection and take Rondale Moore.
I like Moore a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think Moore will know pretty quickly kind of what he is this year, because he's going to get a lot more opportunities with Hopkins suspended to start the season. I liked Moore a ton in Dynasty, and he's a guy I've been drafting this season. So it's a hopeful pick, but at wide receiver 59, it's drying up pretty quickly, and I think that there's a chance that he returns big time value from where I got him.
Yeah, especially like you said, Hopkins suspended, should have a pretty good early part of the season if he's able to kind of capture on it. Should be keep his usage at least when he returns as well. Let's take a look. I'm coming up on the board. My queue just got decimated, so let me take a look at who is available. Throw some names in the queue here so I don't get behind the 8 ball. We saw Moore go, Myers go, Laundry go, Dotson go, Hines, Ronald Jones, Spiller. That was a pretty brutal amount of picks there for me. Goddard there at the 10-8. That's pretty good value.
It's tremendous value. I'm big into Goddard this season. I think that he's super talented. If we're expecting the Philadelphia offense to take a big step forward, like the pie grows larger type argument, I think Goddard could have a very, very good season. I think some people are worried about the target share I think that Devonta Smith and Goddard are both potentially going at a slight discount right now because people are just worried about, supporting multiple pass catchers in that offense. But again, that offense could be really, really, really high scoring if it all breaks right. We love their offensive line. It's year 2 for the head coach, and they got A.J. Brown, who's going to command a lot of attention. So Goddard's super interesting to me.
And it looks like not a new low, but his low previously was 135. Average ADP is 110. So he got about a half round of value on him there. He goes off the board here at tight end 8, averaging tight end 8. So a slight discount on him there. I just took DJ Chark. And I'm big on the Lions this year. I think Goff could have sneaky value. And this team just seems to have a lot of heart, right? You look at the comments last year about biting kneecaps, the common joke, right? But you look what they did in the stretch and, upsetting teams and just playing hard week in, week out. And Jameson's still recovering from injury. They went out and got Chark. Chark could be the deep threat here, big-bodied as well. I think he could have a sneaky good year.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Campbell might end up looking like the smartest man in the room if he turns that team around big time. And we like a number of their players, and I think they're a sneaky team this year. I know that a lot of the betting lines got banged early, and now the Lions to win the division line has gone way down from where it was. So there's definitely a chance that they're very competitive, and we'll see how that division goes.
So I just got the new low on Melvin Gordon. I was hoping he'd make it back around the turn because he had so much green up there. It scared me when he took Rachaad White. I thought, man, he might take another running back here. But Melvin Gordon follows me at the 122, who slides in as my possibly RB2 with Kamara being suspended. Maybe my RB3. We'll find out here hopefully in weeks to come. But pick 122, running back 44. His previous low was pick 114, so 8 picks of value. Running back 37 is where he's averaging off the board, so 7 positional picks of value. I think Melvin Gordon is going to have a pretty good year this year. I mean, all the hype surrounding Javonte Williams, but last year this offense split the ball nearly 50-50. And I understand it's not going to be the same here in 2022 with Melvin Gordon coming back. He's still going to be used, though. I don't think that Javonte is just going to be given 65%. Like, I still think this is going to be closer to 50-50 than people think. What's your take on Melvin Gordon? Are you targeting? Are you fading him? Are you Javonte fan? Like, what are you thinking?
So I do want some Javonte because I think that that there's a chance that he just absolutely smashes this year based on how good the offense is and if he takes a big step forward. But I think Melvin Gordon, in like that low end running back 3 range or lower, like he went tonight, definitely has some appeal. He looked good last year. It was more of a split last year. So I would say that neither one is like a massive target, but I definitely will have shares of both. Neither one is a fade. I'm on the clock here.
Yeah, go for it. While you're doing those thoughts, I'll let you know why. Like, Javonte Williams was one of my fades earlier in the year. Now where he's going at ADP, we're starting to see him slide a little bit. But we had seen him go as early as like pick 107, 105, 104 in some drafts and early drafts in like February, March, April timelines. 210, I'm a little bit more on board, but honestly, I don't really like him until he's in the 3rd round. Last year, I talked about the 50-50 split. You saw them just exactly how 50-50 it was. Javonte and Melvin Gordon each saw 32.1 snaps per game. Williams saw 32.4, Williams 32.1. MG3 saw 47.5% of total snaps, while Javonte saw 51%. Now, I do expect that to go up this year for Javonte, but I still think Melvin Gordon's going to see that low 40s, and Javonte probably creeps up closer to 60, but I don't think it's going to go above 60. Now, you look at their rushing share, they saw an identical 44.6% of rushing share, so they continue to utilize both these backs as well. And the list just continues for being split. Snaps per game, Melvin Gordon 44.9, Williams 44.6. Fantasy points, Melvin Gordon 195.1, Williams 204.9. And then you look at like snaps per fantasy points per 100 snaps. Melvin Gordon saw 38, Williams 37.2. So I like Javonte, don't get me wrong. He's very talented. I think he's going to be a much better bet for the second half of the season as they start to lean on him more, and start to rely on him more as he gets, more acquainted in this offense. I don't think Melvin Gordon's just going to go away, right? You saw Russ was pushing to get Gordon back as well. I think they're going to plan on using both backs again this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're such a good team too that keeping a fresh back in there makes a lot of sense. I do think that the one bullish argument against Gordon is that they kind of let him have a chance to walk, and then they gave him a very reasonable contract to return. So it was kind of like hey, we'll have you back, but we're not going to go out of our way to give him some massive contract. So it'll be interesting to see the way it shakes out, and it could be a potentially like the usage for Javonte Williams could be like a big fantasy mover for how like leagues shake out. Because if Javonte Williams does get a huge increase, then some of these teams getting Javonte around like the 2-3 turn and once in a while later are going to get an absolute smash value. And then like where Melvin Gordon went, he could end up being a really big value. So it's definitely tilting. I'm not happy to see Kenneth Gainwell go. Shout out to Team 12, who's made some nice picks tonight. I thought about Gainwell where I took Ertz. The reason I took a second tight end is for the correlation with Kyler Murray. I like having, Rondell and Ertz. Potentially, if things break right, they could be two kind of starting players. And I think Ertz, again, I mentioned him earlier. I think he's got a chance to be a very reliable weekly guy that I could use in a flex.
Yeah, I like Gainwell as well. So real quick, back to Melvin Gordon. Question for you: where did Melvin Gordon go to college?
University of Wisconsin.
Where did Russell Wilson go to college?
Well, there you go. You got the shower locker room narrative right there. But I will say Russell Wilson, Wisconsin with an asterisk, because he was an NC State Wolfpack player for years, and he gets a year at Wisconsin, and we don't get to talk about his ACC days. So, but yeah, you do win that argument. There is some locker room.
There is some shower narrative, and that's why he was recruiting them. Like, they have that rapport together already, right? So, not the same. I know it's not the same as receiver rapport with the quarterback, but it just shows you that he trusts him. He wants him there. I don't know, man. I think I think that Russell Wilson wants to utilize him.
Yeah, I mean,
I could just be talking bullshit and you don't even know, but I just, who knows? But I just have this feeling, like, sometimes it's like I just have to follow my gut, right? I can't prove it. I can't say it's going to happen.
We have to get some Wisconsin people in the chat to let us know how close the lockers were actually to one another.
They were having breakfast every day together, Theo. Come on. It was breakfast.
There you go.
Breakfast in the shower on top of it. Like, they're sitting there,
Roommates.
their mimosas in the steam room together in Wisconsin.
Not only the shower narrative, the brunch narrative.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go with I'm going to finally take my running back 3 here, and I'm going to hope that he holds on. I'm going to take Khalil Herbert, a guy who I like a lot. There's some interesting backs behind him, so there's been a couple people kind of souring on taking him, but I'm not a huge David Montgomery guy. I know you're not either.
No.
And I think, like, rational coaching, if they're going to go super run heavy, I think Khalil Herbert could end up looking like a big value where I took him. I'm also structurally, I really needed a running back, so I'm kind of happy he was there. What do you think? You think, like, Herbert with the guys like Ebner behind him? Are you starting to get a little interested in that RB2 being his, or do you think Herbert's a safe bet?
It's tough to say what the Bears are going to do. I liked Herbert a lot last year, but there is some talent there at the position. They seem to really address the position. Not only the rookie, but they also brought in my boy, right? My boy can't stay healthy, but they brought in Evans, right? And it just shows you maybe they just have a lack of trust with Herbert. There's a lot of signals there that are making me question, right? Why did they bring all these guys in? Like, that's where I'm leaning right now. I'm not saying that it's. I think Herbert's probably the better back out of all of them, but he's probably looking over his shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like, there's a couple of backfields right now where we would like the RB2, but we're really interested to see how it shakes out in camp. Like, I'll throw out Arizona. I think obviously the Kansas City is probably the biggest question mark, kind of where those touches go. And then there's a couple other kind of question mark backfields, like, what's going on in Atlanta. Cordero Patterson looks like the guy, but does Algier get an opportunity? I think Houston's an interesting backfield. So there's a couple of backfields that are still very much in flux. That as we get more information, you'll see some guys moving up and down ADP. And obviously New England, we see tonight how close Stevenson and Harris are going. There's been some, positive Pierre Strong reports. So it's super interesting to me. That's, like, one thing I really like to follow as, we get to the very end of July and we actually start seeing some training camp reports. Which way you going here?
I'm debating. I think I'm going to take Gus Edwards.
Yeah, I don't mind that pick right there.
I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's just kind of one of those meh. I kind of feel like I need a running back, Not crazy about it. Don't hate it. Don't love it. But I still think he's going to have a role in this offense. And it's the most run-heavy offense in the league outside of the Patriots running 40 times on the Bills. So if you take away that game, though, Baltimore is always the most run-heavy offense in the league.
Yeah, I mean, Gus had his couple of weeks last summer where Dobbins went down, and we were taking the Gus bus in like the 5th round, and then he goes down, and it was just. But he's a player you want to root for. He's very effective in that offense when he's on the field. It's just a matter of how many touches. But if Dobbins struggles, get back on the field, I mean, Gus could be a guy that we could see rise up as the summer moves along, just based on his health. I know there's Tyler Bidet and him would become super intriguing if it looks like Dobbins is going to miss some time.
Yeah, Tyler Bidet's an interesting prospect. I love his tape and what he threw together on the field, and he's just very tantalizing player. I think Gus has the lead on him in terms of playing time, but news is that Dobbins may not be ready for week 1, and if so, I mean, if Kamara is suspended and Dobbins is not ready, I mean, that's a lot of ifs, right? But if Kamara is suspended and if Dobbins is not ready for week 1, Gus Edwards, like you said, starts shooting up boards. So I just took Aaron Rodgers to stack with Lazard, my quarterback, off the first quarterback. Pick 146. We had a comment earlier, and I didn't want to show it simply because I didn't want him to get picked. But have you ever seen a back-to-back MVP candidate go so low in fantasy drafts?
I mean, again, we're kind of it could look laughable where he's going. Again, he's still going off as what did you get him as? Quarterback 12. So it's not like you got a massive discount. It'd be more of a talent discount. Because I think if we're ranking the quarterback position and we're kind of being honest with it, it's hard to put him much higher than that. I think that he's a high end QB2 or a low end QB1. He just doesn't have the weapons this year. I think they could have done some things. I mean, if I'm Green Bay, I'm calling Seattle and doing what I can to get DK Metcalf. I'm calling up San Francisco, and I'm trying to get Deebo Samuel. I mean, you give Rodgers this massive contract, and then you don't give him the weapons. So it's kind of hard for me to see him returning value. But like where you took him, I don't think it'll hurt you. I think that, but it's hard for me to see him winning leagues this year. I love that Nico Collins pick. I had him queued up to go. I think he's very interested in this range.
So
and now I'm OTC.
So rumors have swirled that Green Bay may sign Odell Beckham Jr. They may sign Julio Jones. Yes, these are, Julio's at the tail end of his career. Odell may not see the field until November or December. If either of those guys sign in Green Bay, does that change your opinion of Rodgers?
No, not really. I mean, I think it would change my opinion of Alan Lazard. It would certainly help. I mean, if you told me that they picked up, Odell Beckham and Julio Jones, I think that would certainly help. But I don't know if it would make me I'm still taking Tom Brady over him. I'm still taking Russell Wilson over him. I'm still taking Joe Burrow over him. So it's kind of like, just based on where you took him, it would kind of solidify his value for me there, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I think they absolutely should go get those guys. But why are they waiting? Go get them in the building so they're there at the start of camp. I don't know. I keep hearing the same rumors, but it's just not happening.
It is interesting to see what's happening with these free agents, right? We have Will Fuller, who still hasn't signed. Julio still hasn't signed. Odell Beckham still hasn't signed. Now, the Fuller one is interesting because deep threat also could be a potential landing spot in Green Bay. My theory on is he's waiting to see the outcome of the Deshaun Watson news. And if Deshaun Watson is suspended for the season, he decides not to go to Cleveland and will play elsewhere. Because he has been dynamic when on the field, healthy and not on PEDs. Will Fuller has been one of the most, sky high output players that's been available, right? You look at what he was doing prior to being suspended, and he was, a top 12 wide receiver that year? I can't remember exactly where he was.
Yeah, no, he was absolutely crushing. And he had the massive Thanksgiving Day game against Detroit, where he won you your week in fantasy, no matter what else happened. I think he had maybe 2 touchdowns and 150 plus yards, and then he gets suspended for the season, and it was just horrible. I had him on some important teams that year. I think that's a good theory. it's weird. He said he doesn't like playing in cold places, which is like super weird because he's from Philly, and he was a star in Philadelphia at like Roman Catholic High School, which is a big sports school there.
He knows
And
what he
then
doesn't like.
And then he goes to Notre Dame, and now he wants to be in warm climates. So it's interesting. But
Look at this, all this Will Fuller talk and Odell Beckham. He goes, you know what? I'm gonna the shake and bake says I'm double tapping Odell and Fuller here.
Shake and bake. There you go. You get
Shake
Beckham
and
and
bake.
Fuller. All right. So we have back-to-back tight ends for the team before. I'm interested to see what they do because they have only 5 wide receivers at this point.
And one suspended and one hasn't played in a year and a half.
Yep.
So he really has 3 receivers right now.
I'm curious, where are you at on Tyrion Davis-Price as a big 49ers guy who's very knowledgeable of the team? Is that a guy you've been targeting?
I have. I was actually hoping he'd make it back. I took Rodgers just for the stack and was hoping that Tyrion Davis-Price might make it back because he's kind of buried on the list. But my boy RJ in the corner there at 12 just found him and just fired him up. So I like Davis-Price. Dave, my draft partner, likes him more than I do, even though I'm a Niner fan. I have him projected for more of a 25 to 30% snap share in the beginning of the season, kind of increasing to 35% as the season progresses. Of course, we always have the possibility of an injury in a Kyle Shanahan offense with a running back. And if that does happen, I mean, wheels up for Davis-Price. I think he sees the field first over Wilson. He's going to see the field well ahead of Trey Sermon. So I think Price is the handcuff here to Mitchell and definitely spills in to keep him fresh this year because we saw that Elijah Mitchell had durability concerns down the stretch and with those knee injuries and so there was definitely some concern from a volume standpoint for Mitchell. So I think that's why they go out and get Price to give themselves another option in this backfield and not have to rely on someone like Sermon or Wilson.
Yeah, I had Davis-Price, right where I took Brian Robinson. I think I have them kind of comparable values right now. Mm-hmm. I think like the Robinson play is, I'm not anti-Antonio Gibson. I've talked about him in a positive light, but I think if you're betting, having a little bit of a hedge against him, if you're drafting high volume, is not the worst play. So for me, like Robinson and Davis-Price are kind of in that same mix. And then I took Mark Ingram just based on he would be my bet to start for the Saints if we have a suspension for Kamara. I know it could go a number of ways, and Ingram's older, but I don't mind having him for a little depth right there.
So we have Jeff is in the chat. He is the Gronkagro, the guy. He's the Adams, Evans, and Williams team, and he has a fair point here. He says, let me find it here. It just moved up. We had a couple comments. That is 3 great receivers and Hopkins in the playoffs, which is a very valuable point. But you have to make it to the playoffs in order for that to hit. So I do like the Evans, Williams, and Devontae Adams start. I love that start. My only concern is I probably would have had one more receiver probably in that Brady, Ronald Jones area just to give myself another out while those guys are coming back. But I do like the start. I love those 3. Okay, I'm on the clock. Let me take a look here. How much time do I have? I got way too many tabs open. 30 seconds. Okay. I got back-to-back sniped, too. That's always wonderful.
You got to love the 15th round snipes.
It's so true. Look at that. I'm going to use this. I'm going to go ahead. I'm not a big McKissick fan, but I'll take him here. I need a running back.
Yeah, and those pass catching backs are kind of, you don't want to have too many of them in a 20-man roster, but it's useful to have one of them.
Okay. Let's take a couple more looks here. Got thin fast, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is beat up for sure. There's some ugly names that are going to get picked.
There's some gems still, though.
Yeah, there's some interesting guys for sure, but there's a lot of ugliness.
That is for sure.
there goes Wandale. I had him queued up.
Yeah, Wandale was in my queue as well.
I love where they just got him. I think that's great. 15th round Wandale is. I mean, I've been drafting a ton of them this offseason. I have a ton of them in Dynasty. I'm kind of betting on him being a weekly, seeing a lot of weekly action and potentially really, really beating his ADP. He's small, so he scares some people off. But I think and again, it's kind of a bold statement, but I think the really bullish outlook would be that he has an Elijah Moore-like impact. He's just an inch shorter.
Yeah, Wandale's. I mean, I love him because he played running back in high school as well, so he has the ability to rush the ball. He's very small in the NFL to do that, but I could see them getting creative with him, right? Using him on jet sweeps, maybe throwing him in the backfield on time to time. But you look at who's behind Barkley, and there's no one behind Barkley. So yeah, outside Breida, right? And so are they going to mix in Wandale in the backfield as well to kind of alleviate some of that workload? We're not going to see, 7, 8, 9 carries a game from Wandale, but could you see 2 a game? Definitely within the realm of possibilities. And I think if that happens, I mean, that makes him a lot more interesting of a prospect in the NFL. In round 15, getting some rushing attempts, still getting passing attempts. I mean, they went out of their way and drafted him early. So I expect them to utilize him. And in round 15, 3 wide receiver league, I love the pick there.
Yeah, I like your idea of him being a manufactured touch guy. I just think he's dynamic, and I think that we also have to look at who the quarterback is, and low A-dot throws where guys can get yak. I mean, that's right up Daniel Jones's alley, and I think Dable is going to have a good enough scheme where they're going to actually be able to move the ball a little bit in New York this year, and I think that the bullish outlook would be that Tony and him both play a lot and both are dynamic. And I'm not really betting on it, but you can make an argument to me that Kenny Golladay has a bounce back year, although I'm not really into it.
I definitely think Golladay could have a bounce back year. You look at being in a new system with a new coach last year, got injured as well. There was a lot that he was playing against. At least now he's got year 2 with the same quarterback. It is going to be a new coach and a new system again, but having just those reps with the quarterback again and being able to be on the field, just be healthy this year, where he's going, I think is the value. And he has a really good chance to outperform that ADP. That's what I always look at and say, can this player give me a return on my investment, right? Are they going to outproduce where they're being drafted? If the answer is yes, then you won, at that given spot. And if you can constantly do that through a draft, you're bound to have a successful year.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much free in this draft. I mean, wide receiver 52. So even if he fails, it's kind of like a aim small. And if you miss, you miss, but the payoff could be really big. Shout out to Johannes, who's a big high stakes player herself, and she's a big Goat District supporter. Hope you're doing well, Johannes.
Yep, thanks for all the support. She's on our podcast as well. Also joins us over at Player Profiler when I record with Matt Kelly. So always nice to see you here. Join us. There's a couple other comments I want to get. What does this comment say from Bobby Boucher? I love that name, Bobby Boucher.
It's awesome.
Right? You'd sit there and say, Wandale Robinson is the devil, right? Or what is that? Is that the I think that's the line from the Waterboy, right?
Yeah, that's that. Shout out to Waterboy's mom.
There's definitely less of a running back dead zone this year. It makes mid to late running backs more interesting. Love some late ones like Penny and Pollard. Absolutely. Trevor also loves the Wandale pick there. He was hoping he'd make it back. And let's see, a couple more comments. Back in Trump's front end draft right now. And then we have Pollard goes too high for a handcuff. What's your take? I know this is always the annual debate with Pollard. Is he purely a handcuff at this point in 2022? We saw how electric he was down the field. Rumors are, or not rumors, but the reports out of camp are that they're going to be utilizing him inside the slot, which is phenomenal for Pollard's fantasy perspectives because they finally figured out how to utilize him. Are you expecting him to get more passing down work this year? Or are you expecting him to mix in on early downs as well? Is he just a handcuff with the potential of league-winning upside if Zeke goes down? Are you drafting Pollard? Are you targeting him? Walk me through that.
So Pollard usually goes like right ahead where I've had bad luck getting him. He's a guy that I like. And I think that like where team one got him tonight at RB28, I think that's appropriately priced. I think that there's the bullish argument is Zeke continues to break down, and we see Pollard see an increased workload where the coaching staff is going to be, completely forced to use him like we'd like him to be used, and where potentially Jerry Jones is not in the ear, demanding Zeke. So I think Pollard is appropriately priced because, we talk about him being a handcuff, but he was productive last year. He was higher than running back 28 last year in the final, PPR scoring. I don't recall exactly where he finished, Billy, but I believe he was like right around RB 25. He's a dynamic player, and like you said, there's available targets in that offense. So I'm not out on Pollard. He's not a guy that I'm going to really push up draft boards, but I think like he's a pretty decent value for me at ADP, and I like him in some hero type builds, sort of like what I did tonight. And I'm OTC.
Yeah, while you're on the clock, Pollard finishes running back 28, 162.6 fantasy points. He averaged 10.8 per game, but had some definitely winning weeks for you as a fantasy player, right? He had some monster games. I'm going to click on him here to give you exactly those breakdowns. So you look back at, where is it at? Game log. So you look back and say week 2 he had 20 fantasy points, right? That was a big. I'm in the wrong scoring format. Excuse me. So 23 fantasy points in week 2, 15.8 fantasy points week 10, 16.8 in week 12, 15.4 in week 13. I mean, those are all RB1 numbers on those given weeks. So if Zeke does go down, potential league winning upside. Even if he doesn't, though, I think his usage in the passing game will this year will definitely prop up his fantasy points.
Yeah, and like as a mental exercise, if Zeke were to go down tomorrow, Tony Pollard's going like 8. He's going like top 10 in every single draft. So, we believe in his talent. It's just a matter of an opportunity and a hope for rational coaching. But I mean, the Cowboys are just a little less dynamic without Amari Cooper. Gallup has the injury. They like Tolbert, but he's a rookie. So, I mean, it's kind of hard for them not to use Pollard, at least to start the season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I took Benjamin. I'm starting to get into him a little bit, Billy. When you're off the clock, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
I have been too, and every time I want to get him, he just seems to go ahead of where I've been comfortable selecting him. Like I was debating on taking him here, and then you took him, but he seems to be climbing up boards with the camp news.
The camp news is super, super positive. Kingsbury praised his pass blocking. He praised his receiving ability, and he specifically said that he looks like an NFL starter out there. So I know they bring in Darrell Williams. And they gave Darrell Williams like $850K guaranteed, so it's not like they gave him a nothing contract. But Darrell we've seen what he is. He's a very ordinary player. I think the market was really excited about last year, and I think maybe it's starting to catch up with it again this year. And I think the Keontae Ingram argument was interesting. I mean, he's a big back. He runs hard. He happened to play, with Bijan Robinson at Texas. So he, there's people that really love Keontae Ingram, but you're still betting on a very late round guy that's a rookie. So I think that Eno is a guy that could climb up boards kind of as the summer moves along, if it looks like he's the clear cuff in Arizona. And I think that the way Cliff Kingsbury is talking about him, I think he could be like potentially a Chase Edmonds light type usage if it all works out.
What do you think about Williams though? Do you think Williams has a grip right now in the second role, or do you think that Benjamin's pushing him?
I think it's up in the air. I think that they certainly wouldn't have brought in Williams if they thought Benjamin or Ingram was a slam dunk for it.
Yep.
But I think I think that Benjamin and Williams are closer than maybe they are ADP wise. Where you see Williams went 149 overall. I got Benjamin. What is this, 185 overall? So there's 40 different spots, and I think they're probably right next to each other.
Okay.
But I would bet on Eno. I mean, I think Eno's got the experience. He's been in the system for a year, and we liked him at Arizona State. He was a big time producer, certainly more dynamic than maybe we've seen Darrell Williams be. So I would love to see Benjamin have a role there, especially since I just drafted him, and now I'm rooting for him because I have him on this team.
I just took Duvernay as my 9th wide receiver. Comes off at wide receiver 92. He's been a guy I've been actively targeting in drafts, and people don't realize he's the wide receiver 2 in this offense right now. Yes, he's playing behind Bateman, and he's playing also behind Mark Andrews for pass catching reps, but the wide receiver 2 in this offense should still see some meaningful playing time, some meaningful reps, some meaningful targets. What's your thoughts on Duvernay here?
I mean, I've been drafting Duvernay a ton in underdog. I think that there's the things that they lost with Hollywood Brown in terms of just pure speed on the outside. I think Duvernay offers some of that. Has experience again in the system. I believe this is year 3 for him. And I think that he's the better bet than Prochet. To be the number 3 target in the offense. I think there's a chance it could be Prochet, but I like taking Duvernay. I think that he's interesting. And again, this late in the draft, you'll know pretty quick whether you're just basically keeping him or not. And I'm OTC right now.
Looks like I sniped a bunch of people. Looks like he was in everybody's queue. So.
Yeah, Duvernay definitely gets drafted every draft now. Whereas early in the spring he was basically free. I'm gonna go with. Let me see.
Cav was wondering why he didn't take Duvernay over Wandale. Probably to stack with Lamar here, or even over the second tight end. I think would have been good as well. I missed he had Lamar Jackson honestly, or I would have taken Duvernay ahead of Washington.
Yeah, and I just took McKinnon. It's more of a, potential attrition play where I think if he could potentially have a decent role, I think we'll know really quickly he could be a guy that's getting cut at this range of the draft. But he had some moments last year where he certainly looked good, and potentially betting for him having the passing down role in Kansas City, and if he has that, then he's a valuable pick this late, but I'm not super thrilled about him. It's very, 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 very flat this time in the draft. I like the AJ Green pick. I had him queued up as well. It's kind of I prefer Rondell Moore, of course. I took him much earlier, but AJ will have a role early in the year.
We're nearing the final 3 rounds. As a reminder, you do not have to draft a tight. Excuse me, I can't even think of the position. You do not have to draft a kicker. You do not have to draft a defense. There is a waiver run prior to week 1, so you can always address that position as needed. Are you, knowing that, are you a select a defense kind of guy? I'm assuming you're not going to take a kicker and just take one before week 1, but or are you just going to see what's available when you're up and make your decision at that point?
I probably will take a defense, but I don't mind waiting and just taking another running back, a lottery ticket type guy, then filling both those positions. How about you? Have you been drafting them, or?
I've only taken a defense where Buffalo failed me at round 19 or something like that. It was silly, right? And I was like, okay, I'll take arguably the number 1 defense right now and just be done with it. But all the other drafts I've done, I have not taken a defense, and I have not taken a kicker in any of them. So I'm a believer in taking the stabs late and trying to find someone that's going to possibly be a starter on your team for the final, 2 or 3 rounds. But if a defense falls to me and I think that it's, a top tier defense, I'll take them. So it just depends upon what falls to me and where it happens.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And I do like that in this format, you can skip drafting those positions. I think it's a very cool feature.
Yeah, it definitely changes things, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it makes that first waiver wire run even tighter.
It does. Okay, so as we near the end of the draft, the timers start ticking down. Everyone's searching for that lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, it's definitely lottery ticket time for a lot of these picks.
Bobby Boucher says, hopefully Bateman can be efficient with his targets. There's not much in Baltimore to catch passes behind Andrew and him. That is correct. It's Duvernay and Proche. That's it, right?
Yeah. That would. I mean, Wallace is still there, but I think it's, Proche seems like he's got a leg up. I think it's going to come down to one of those two guys could be, rosterable in this format. And I'm OTC here.
Yeah, Wallace is there. Jalen Moore. They're so ugly. There's 6 rookies there. I don't even know most of these names, honestly. Like Devin Williams, Mikey Polk. There's all these guys are just throw shit on the wall and see which one sticks. There's 6 of them.
It's super ugly.
Pierre Strong. I loved his tape. I hate the landing spot.
Yeah, I'm betting on, obviously a Stevenson or Damian Harris being the one you'd want in New England. But Strong has had some positive reports coming out of camp. It looks like they're doing a lot more outside zone. They're trying to get a little Shanahan-y. Strong is probably not a guy that's going to be on my roster in week 3, but it's a lottery ticket type guy to take in the 18th round. And again, I really liked him as a prospect. But it's kind of hard to bet on these small school day 3 guys, let alone when they land into a crowded situation.
Very crowded, right? And not only that, they took like Kevin Harris, Ramondre's ahead of him. You have Harris. I think Strong and Harris are more 2023 plays, in my opinion. But who knows what the Patriots are going to do, right? Do they just rotate 3 backs? We don't know, right? It's Bill Belichick. You never know what they're going to do. And so I was so disappointed. I was hoping he was going to land somewhere like Atlanta or a running back needy team that he was going to make an immediate impact on. It just didn't happen. And New England was probably like the worst of the worst situations, in my opinion. Like I could just tell you where I don't want him to land, New England would have been number 1 on the list.
Yeah, and they had such a weird draft. It was like the weirdest draft you've ever seen in terms of like the schools and the profiles. I said it's only a matter of time before Bill Belichick just starts drafting international guys who haven't played football. He just drafts somebody, some huge European guy and puts him in at tackle or something like that. But I don't know. It's a shot in the dark here. But again, you have to kind of bet on the profile this late in the draft. I want to have a talented guy when possible, and I certainly think Pierre Strong has talent. So we'll see which way it goes. And training camp is right around the corner.
So I just got Snoop Connor at pick 215, running back 72 off the board. What's your opinion on Snoop? I think he could be for some meaningful snaps here in 2022 because Robinson is recovering from that torn Achilles. I don't think he's going to recover like Wolverine did, or like I call him Wolverine now. Akers is Wolverine, I'm convinced. Like he came back in like 6 months off an Achilles injury, which is typically a 2-year return. But Robinson, I don't think is going to be quite as fortunate. What's your take on Connor?
So I have almost, in terms of dynasty rosters, I have Snoop Connor on pretty much every single dynasty roster. Because I was betting against the James Robinson, potentially missing a ton of time. And I think also with the new coaching staff, there's potential that James Robinson could be dust in their eyes. So Snoop Connor, you get an SEC back. He's got some size. He's interesting. I like where you took him. And I think he's an interesting guy in Dynasty as well, because we've seen ETN miss time. We're all into ETN, but, it's anything can happen in the NFL. And I like those backs that played in the SEC. And, Connor definitely has a little bit of juice to him. So it kind of all depends on Robinson's timetable. But you'll know a lot more over the next month, kind of, hopefully get some more reports on, where he's at.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, is he going to be the goal line back? ETN's not the biggest back, right? And like you just said, he was injured last year, missed some time. Connor's coming in like a little bowling ball, right? He's a 5'10", 222 pounds, has more of that goal line physique. Makes you wonder if he's going to be the goal line back. But I think regardless, he should see the field at least 35% of the time, maybe 40% of the time. It just depends on how much they want to lean on ETN and keep him fresh.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be interested to see how much of a workload they give to ETN, because they're going to use him so much in the passing game is how I'm projecting him. So it's going to be interesting to see just how many touches they think he can handle on a weekly basis. But yeah, Connor's definitely an interesting name. That's one that I should have potentially taken him where now I'm kind of talking to myself into I wish I had Connor over Strong.
I did the same thing with Wandale when I took McKissick. I was like, God damn it, I should have taken Wandale over McKissick. Yeah. But shit happens. I mean, that's part of drafting. You make mistakes. We're podcasting. We're trying to keep people entertained. We're talking about players. We're drafting at the same time. I'm drinking wine on top of it. Like, mistakes can be made, Theo. It's okay.
I have less excuse. I'm drinking Perrier, but a little less excuse than Billy.
It's like my ritual. I go grab a bottle of wine. I draft. That's probably why I like to draft daily. It's an excuse to grab a bottle of wine every day. But you always look back. Like, I always look at a board and say, because we're human, right? We all make errors. But draft board review, in my opinion, is one of the most important processes that a player can do in not just high stakes, but just even in friends and family leagues. Like, if you are newcomer into the fantasy industry and you're looking at trying to get better as a fantasy player, reviewing draft boards is probably the number one process that I can recommend. You go back and say, where did I make an error, right? Don't look at it and say, oh man, how great was my draft? Because even if you do that, you still need to look at it from a standpoint of how can I get better? Always looking at ways to improve. Where did I make errors? Where could I have bettered my team? What was I thinking during the draft? And I like to review it after I'm done with the draft. I like to come back to it the next day, and then I like to come back to it a few days later, and then I like to even come back to it again in a couple weeks and say, has my mindset changed? What was I thinking during this time? What made me draft this way? Because you go back in just a couple weeks and look at a draft that you've done. I've said to myself, what the fuck was I thinking, right? Like, I took player X over player Y. Why? Why was I thinking that? And I try to go back and remember exactly what's happening in camp. So that's why it's important, because you can build these scenarios in your head. Like last year was a good example. Like, I was drafting Darrington Evans like clockwork around 18, 19. Every single time he came around, right? I had like 50 or 60% ownership in him, and that's fine.
I had so much Darrington Evans too. It's really sad that it didn't hit.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the process was right, because we all knew that Henry was eventually going to break down with that many carries. It just, Evans also broke down. It just didn't work out that way, and then we just didn't have the correct back. So, but when you go back and look at it and say, had I selected this player over him half the amount of times, how many of those teams would have turned out differently, right? And so, don't get stuck in taking the same player over and over again. Open up your mind, open up your thought process, and look at different players every single time. It's okay to have your favorite late round targets, but mix them up. Have 12 in that given range, and pick a different one, because if you consistently take the same player, like Darrington Evans, I'm guilty of it as well.
Or Jared Dokes. Jared Dokes. I'm sure you had a lot of Dokes as well last year.
Yeah, so it happens, right? But if that player doesn't hit, like, it's nice to only have 25 or 30% of them rather than 50 or 60% of them. And where I'm going with this is that you can not only diversify your portfolio, but you can also see just like how the board changes when you make these picks, and what would have done differently for your team, and how can you make your team better, right? So Go back through. If you're drafting tonight, save this draft. Come back to it tomorrow. Come back to it in a week. Come back to it and look at it and ask yourself, where did I make an error? What player? Like, I look at my board right now and I have 2 picks that I wish I could have taken back already, right? Just looking at how the board fell. And as a player, you need to be able to identify that where you made your errors. Like, no one's perfect. Know that you can make errors. Know that you can get better.
Yeah, I think those are great points, Billy. And I also think that when you go and review draft boards, especially one great thing about fantasy Twitter, especially in the high stakes streets, is people are posting boards. You can kind of see like the players that are like red hot this time of year. And it doesn't have to be like a guy going in the first 3 rounds. Like a guy like Ramondre Stevenson, you see where people are willing to reach to take him. And if he's going to be part of your draft plan, you kind of know when you have to reach. And I think knowing when you have to reach is just as valuable, is a very valuable thing if you're into some of these red hot guys. Some players are not necessarily targeting anybody. They're value-based drafters. But some players who have their targets, you need to kind of have a plan as to when you're going to go get them. And ADP is not always, super helpful with that, because as the summer moves along, people are going to be more and more willing to reach. People want to have unique builds and that sort of thing. And I also think that when you review draft boards, it kind of helps your end game targets, where you should have kind of a plan for like the last, 5 rounds of a couple guys you might want to get. And you can kind of see how to approach the back end of a draft as well. Because I think everybody can kind of tell you at this point in the summer, if you're watching this stream, you know who you like in the first 5 rounds. You know where about guys are going to go. But I think just continually getting better at drafting those last 5 or 6 rounds is really how you build these potential monsters.
So Trevor has a good point here. If you also hit on those late guys that you have 40, 50%, you absolutely crush, which is absolutely right. It's the misses that we all remember as well. Then Wheeler said that he still thinks Henry Handcuff was still available. I'm curious if he thinks that is Dontrell Hilliard or not. So Hilliard is a guy that I've been targeting a lot in drafts simply because he was the pass catching down back last year during the time Henry was out. They're also down a lot of receivers. Do you think Hilliard has a role this year in 2022 with Henry on the field?
I think that Hilliard might have a role, but I think if Henry went down, I think it's Hassan Haskins. I think Hassan Haskins was he's a 4th round pick. He's a big, 230-pound back. He was he had a ton of reps on the bench press, which I know a lot of guys don't even test on bench press anymore in the combine, but
27 reps.
Yeah, he's a big, strong, classic, Big Ten running back. Derrick Henry has praised him in camp, has praised his talent and specifically called him out early on in OTAs. And I think that Haskins is he's a guy that I'm higher on. And I know that Wheeler's not a huge Haskins guy, and he's a Hilliard guy, but I'm definitely Haskins. I think Haskins is one of those interesting handcuffs this year, especially because you're potentially getting the handcuff at an RB 5 price.
Trevor says, watch Haskins tape versus OSU. Biggest game at the biggest time, and it was tape impressive.
Yeah, he had some highlights in that game for sure, and that was the biggest win Michigan's had in years. So he definitely helped them win that game without a doubt.
Johanna says she's been reading the Titans are not 100% on Hilliard's pass blocking and catching. I mean, pass blocking was an issue last year, but he definitely was able to catch the ball. So I'm curious to see how that evolves in camp. Let's take a look at the board. I'm going to zoom out so we can kind of see it a little bit better from my perspective. For those of you who are watching, make sure to go back and use the link that I sent in the very beginning. So scroll all the way up if you want the link. I don't think I can copy and paste anymore. Let me see if it's there. Oh, it is. Great. I haven't copied anything else. So here, I'll throw the link back in there for you to see. For those who are in the chat as we're zoomed out, let's take a look at some of the builds. Not picking yourself, what is one of your favorite builds on the board? I love to do this too. I love to put you on the spot.
I without really thinking about it, I like what Team 12 did because I like the Swift. I love his value on Swift. I think structurally, him following it up and getting the 3 wide receivers there, I think he has very good structure with his team, and I think that kind of makes him a contender. I don't love the Gibson Cooper picks, but I completely understand them. I kind of like the Gibson pick a little more than the Cooper pick. Again, I'm just apprehensive about that offense right now. But I like his structure. I like your team a lot because I think that you have very, very strong wide receivers early to go with McCaffrey. I'm trying to see. I like what Trevor did, where he started 3 wide receivers, but then he kind of covered up with a pretty interesting wide receiver core. I think he's going to need Renfro to return value, and he's going to need Burks or more to at least contribute early on. But I like what he did with the Boyd and Myers picks. But yeah, there's some very interesting builds here. How about you, Billy? Who do you like?
I also like 12's build. Again, I wasn't crazy as well about the Gibson pick, but I would have liked to see one more receiver there, I think, and just kind of lean into Swift as an anchor. I also really like what where'd it go? I love the beginning of Gronka Gro's selection. I just wasn't crazy about the Patterson pick and a couple picks there, but I love the 3 receivers that he started off with, and then double tapped Elliott and Dobbins. So if Dobbins comes out healthy, if Mike Thomas comes out healthy, this team could be really deadly. So I think there's a bunch of concerns, but there's a lot of upside as well. And then structurally, also I like Trevor's team as well. I'm not a fan of early quarterback, but Allen in round 5, sure, why not? I would have liked to seen another tight end or not tight end, another receiver over tight end in the 11 spot. I think just to kind of solidify the wide receiver position because there is question marks there. But I think those are the teams that I like the most outside of yours and mine, of course. But I didn't pick yours. Yours is very structurally sound. I would have picked yours, but we're on the show together.
There's also some. I will say that just a hat tip to the draft room. I think it was a well drafted draft. Mm-hmm. I don't think that there was like a stone in the draft at all. There wasn't like a whole lot of egregious picks. I think there was people are really, it just shows how sharp this format is, and it's attracting some very sharp players because I think that it's hard to pick like a really horrible construction here. And I think structurally there's a lot of very strong builds there. So yeah, this was a blast getting the chance to draft in this draft tonight, and a shout out to everybody in the draft for making it so difficult.
Yeah, it was a very, very sharp draft room. I felt like wasn't getting a lot of value at any position. I felt like if I had to take a player, I had to kind of reach a little bit on him or just take him at cost. Very few drops in here. I think Kamara was the only player that I felt like I got significant value on. But even with the suspension looming, I'm higher on him than most players are. So overall, very sharp. And I find that a lot in FFWC, a lot of sharp players in here. The format attracts a lot of sharp, high stakes players in general. For those of you who have been tuning in the entire time, make sure to start registering for your FFWC, the World Championship drafts. If you have those paid up and selected which drafts you want to do by this weekend, you get your draft spots. Also, make sure to register for your Vegas picks or your Vegas drafts. Those are starting to fill up already. There's 3 spots left in the 10K. There's a few spots left in the 5K. And then the main events or the World Championship are already starting to fill up as well. So if you are interested in drafting in Vegas, make sure to take a look at those rooms, and you can just go to the lobby and click on Live in Vegas. Those can be drafted online as well as live in Vegas. So don't be scared by the Vegas button. It's just that's where it's highlighted, or that's what it's under. You can draft those in person or online. Theo, I appreciate you coming on. Always a pleasure to have you on. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Always really like to see your thought process, how you analyze players. I think you're one of the sharpest minds in the business. Always great to get your insight. Why don't you tell everyone here where they can find you and your work?
So you can find my written work on Player Profiler. I am the lead high stakes writer there. I have some pretty interesting pieces coming out. We've dropped a couple of them already throughout the summer. If you go to Player Profiler, you can find them. And then I have, I think, another article coming out next week where I looked at arbitrage plays, potential values a couple rounds later, similar situations and values at a discount. And then you can find me weekly on the GOAT District. We've had Billy on a number of times. I think Billy might be on the Mount Rushmore right now of guests because he's been on so many times. He's definitely like a free T-shirt type guy if we ever are giving out swag. But we recently had Billy on with Dave Hubbard. If you didn't listen to that episode, go back and listen to it, where we really dove into high stakes process. We talked about a number of players. We've had this year, I would say, most of the best high stakes players in the world have been on the GOAT District at this point, and we have a couple more coming on. We've also had some tremendous analysts come on the GOAT District. So every week we're really trying to put out, top-notch shows, and I think you'll enjoy it if you give us a listen.
Love the GOAT District. Love what you guys are doing over there. Love that we can always bounce high stakes shows off each other, have similar guests on, and be able to collaborate together as friends and partners in the business. So appreciate you, Theo, coming on. 62 sleeps, as Stats Guru says, 62 more sleeps until the FFWC main event week. So make sure to sign up, folks. We appreciate you tuning in, and we always appreciate the comments. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Make sure to get us that algorithm. It helps the show a lot. We'll see you all back here next week. Stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in.
Nothing but time.
I ended the button too quick.
Awesome.
Great. I'm back.